The most successful people often have such a short gap between having an idea, a thought they should action, and actually acting on it. The people that have the most success, see the most things created, see the best results, are the ones that have a very short window between the idea and the action. And those who sit in the camp of daydreaming, not taking action, wondering why things aren't moving are the ones that have a much longer duration between having an idea and actually actioning it. For so long, I really thought that those people who had a quick, short span between idea and action maybe had a different brain structure. They maybe were more disciplined. They maybe weren't, as distracted. And those with the longest span, which I had, were those who were lazy, those who didn't have discipline, those who weren't functioning right neurologically, which stopped them being able to move forward. And the thing that really has just unlocked my mind and been such a freeing truth is the reality that the difference between the successful people who action and those who aren't successful and don't take action is very much based on the stories that you tell yourself. It comes down to what story you're telling yourself about the specific circumstances that you're going through in life. So before, I used to hear these generic thoughts about controlling your mind means you control your outcomes, but it was too broad. When I drilled it down to what stories am I telling myself about these specific scenarios, I could see where time and time again, the thoughts that I was thinking, the stories I was telling were creating blocks where I would either delay making a move, get distracted, or feel discouraged because of those stories. So if you're seeing that you're not actioning, you're not taking steps forward, you're not being consistent, you're not having an idea and then action it straight away, you're not posting something as soon as you know that you should, film something, you're instead giving it a week, and by a week's time you've stopped the idea of posting, you no longer feel confident, and then you end up in the same spot again. Instead of trying to control your thoughts at this mass level, control it at a micro level. What are you going through in your life right now that you're telling yourself a negative story about? Focus on that very specific thing. So for me, when I look back, the storylines that I kept falling into on a micro level were usually after breakups or heartbreak, something to do with heartbreak, where I would tell myself, I'm not good enough to be seen. I'm not good enough to be chosen. I'm not good enough to have something to share with the world. I'm not good enough to help anybody. And those stories were always tied to a specific event at a micro level, the story I was telling myself about that breakup. So, for instance, I've gone through a breakup recently, and in the past, I would look at that breakup and think, I am not good enough because I wasn't chosen. When in reality, when I really dissect that story, it's not true. That relationship broke down because we were not in alignment, and there were some practical things that made it very difficult for us to sync. And when I switched that story, instead of going into the cycle that I used to do when I had a breakup, which is go into hiding, put my purpose on hold, stop feeling confident about being in front of the camera, delaying my plans, and just feeling like I'm starting from scratch year after year, instead, I was able to switch that story at a micro level, control my thoughts about the main thing at a micro level, and then be able to still sit in front of this camera right now, knowing who I am and being on course for the things that I am called to do, that I plan to do, that I know I should do, that I no longer have a story in my head that's blocking me from doing. And the same thing is in your career. It could be in your job, it could be in your finances. I know the one time that I, was let go from a job, I really felt unworthy. I just felt like a failure. And that feeling of failure and the story of you're a failure that was going around that micro incident of being let go from a job stopped me wanting to push forward in my business. It stopped me wanting to get new clients because I'm like, if this corporate company doesn't want me, why would my clients want to work with me? And again, that was a lie, but that storyline was it dictating my actions. It was nothing to do with whether or not I was lazy. It was nothing to do with whether or not I was determined. And it was nothing to do with whether or not I was capable. It was purely to do with the storylines I was telling myself at a micro level. So if you've heard these things year after year, week after week, Think and Grow Rich, control your mind and it will control your outcomes, and you have not yet been able to do it, instead of trying to control every thought and live in this fairy tale land, get honed in on the storylines of the things that you're currently happening in your life. Did you just have a friendship breakup? Are you having tension with someone at work? Do you feel left out of church things? Are you not feeling included in a social community? Whatever it is, did your boyfriend break up with you? Whatever those storylines are happening in your life, that is why you're not moving forward. That's why you haven't launched the business. That's why you haven't written the book. That's why you haven't started the podcast or the YouTube channel. Not because you're not capable and not because you need to control all of your every thoughts. It's the key storylines of the pillar things that are happening in your life now. If you're being treated poorly by your family and then you think you are, of a low caliber because you're not coming from this high and mighty, fancy family that have given you everything, and now you can go out and just feel confident, and you're telling yourself that this story that you're coming from humble beginnings, so who are you to help people who have money and were born into it? That is the thing you need to control. Not your every thought, not trying to think happy thoughts 24/7, but the main storyline. When you shift that main storyline, you allow yourself to get rid of the shame and be able to be visible. Shame is the thing that sticks to those storylines. Every negative storyline you're telling yourself about what you're going through right now that is stopping you moving forward is tied to shame. And it's that shame that is making you feel unworthy. It's that shame that's stopping you moving forward. The difference between you and Alex Hormanzi or all of the other super successful people out there is those stories of shame. You have to switch that story of shame, or you're going to be stuck. And not because you weren't called to do it, not because God hasn't equipped you to do it, not because you're not supposed to do it, but because there's a storyline that you're stuck in currently. When the enemy knows what your specific storyline is that gets you stuck, he will keep bringing you that storyline over and over again. Like I said, for me, it's heartbreak. It was either not feeling chosen or a relationship not working out the way I wanted it to. I would always associate that with it's my fault. I did something wrong. And even if that was not the case and it was something that I wanted to end, I would always stick shame to that storyline that would make me want to hide. And when you finally figure out what that main storyline loop is that you're stuck in with just different characters, you're able to rewrite that story at a micro level. And that's when you begin to shift. That's when you begin to be able to show up. That's when you begin to be able to be like, hey, I know who I am. This is who I am, and I'm ready to be seen. Being ready to be seen is the difference between success and failure, action and inaction. Sometimes you can force yourself to do the action, but if in your spirit you're not truly ready to be seen, no one's going to find you. No one's going to find your video. No one's going to resonate with it. So it's twofold. It's getting the storyline fixed so you're able to be seen, but not by force. You have to be ready to be seen by truly deepening the inner work to know who you are, to know your self-perception reflects that of God's. That should be your main goal. Not a content strategy, not a to-do list, not a schedule, not anything to do with planning. It should really be focused right now on your view of yourself, your self-perception, which is tied to those storylines. If you're saying I'm rejected, I'm not chosen, your self-perception is someone of low worth, someone of low caliber. When that storyline shifts and you're like, wait, me and this person just weren't in alignment, then your self-perception can get back to where it's supposed to be, which is I'm worthy of being chosen, I'm worthy of love, I'm a high caliber woman. And that person is the person that can show up in front of a camera, and not by force, because she's also ready to be seen. She's not rejecting herself and therefore expecting rejection and therefore seeing rejection. She's choosing herself and therefore expecting to be chosen by those who are aligned with her, and therefore being able to be found by those who are aligned with her. So I want to encourage you, if you're seeing that you're not making progress, you're not being consistent, you're not seeing yourself show up in the way that you see other people show up, and you know that you desire to show up in that way, it's not because you're a failure. It's not because you're not good enough. It's not because God didn't actually place that dream inside your heart. It's simply that there's a misalignment between the storylines that you're telling yourself, and trying to control every thought is too much. You need to drill down to those storylines, switch the storyline so it aligns with what the Word of God says about you, so that your self perception is accurate. Everything moves forward and everything starts to align. You start to be seen, you start to find your people, and things start to open up for you because you're finally in alignment. If you want to join a community where you can be accountable for that dream that the Lord has put in your heart, be accountable for that project that you've wanted to birth, but you still haven't done it, the book, the podcast, the business, then you can join the Co-Heirs community where we really dive into your self-perception, aligning with that woman that you truly are, switching those storylines and being accountable for taking the action that you truly desire in your heart to see the vision come to fruition that the Lord has placed in your heart and the Lord has called you to do. The links to join that community will be down below, and I'm excited for your future. I'm excited for you to switch those storylines and get in alignment with your right self-perception of who God created you to be as a daughter of Christ, as a co-heir in the kingdom, and go out and birth those visions and make your dreams come true. Love you, and I will see you on the next one.